welcome you all on webinar of drugs for COVID-19, sharing the perspectives. So let's begin our webinar, drugs for COVID-19, shared perspectives. As we know all, this pandemic is going outbreaks and we are going the situation uncontrolled. So still, any drug is not discovered for the COVID-19. All drugs are under process. So with our today's speaker, we want to know which drugs are under process, what are the in which clinical trial phase are under processing. So let me introduce your today's speaker, Dr. Sneha Ambawani from AIIMS Jodhpur. Sneha Ambawani completed her MD and MAMS FAIMER fellow and currently working as professor and head pharmacology AIIMS Jodhpur as a AMC coordinator All India Institute of Medical Sciences Jodhpur. Now I request to Dr. Sneha Ambawani to continue our today's session. Please welcome ma'am. Please continue session.
Hello everyone.
Yes ma'am, you are now audible.
Good evening everyone. Thank you Vikram for introduction.
Thank you ma'am.
As you all know, we are struggling with the treatment part of the COVID-19, and there's lots and lots of medicine and tried for that, but we are not successful till date. So as you all know, in March 2020, the WHO declared this as a pandemic, and that pandemic is caused by novel corona that is known as COVID-19. This COVID-19, as you know, it's a corona caused by the coronavirus. Coronavirus is, we know already that causes the SARS, but this coronavirus causing a new disease, and that's why it is labeled as SARS-CoV-2. That is corona causing respiratory syndrome by coronavirus 2. As you know, before I discuss the treatment part, just have a look at this structure of this coronavirus. So before I start, as a disclaimer, all these views and opinions which I am sharing is of mine. No organization or institute is responsible for that. So this is what morphology of the coronavirus is. As you know, this is an virus, a single-stranded RNA virus, and more importantly, it have 4 protein: membrane glycoprotein, nucleoside capsid protein, envelope or E protein, and spike protein. Apart from, there are 16 non-structural protein are also present, and they have a very important role now for the development of vaccine. Now this spike, all these 4 proteins, that completes the structure of this viron. Now each viron, coronaviron, is very small. Its size is 70 to 90 nanometer. This out of 4 spike glycoprotein play a very important role for the occurrence or development of the disease. This spike protein is responsible for attachment as well as entry of this virus into the host cell. Now this slide shows entry and replication of this SARS-CoV-2 in host cell. Now as you can see here, whenever this infection occurs, there is attachment and entry at the host cell. At this stage, there are spike protein have higher affinity to this AC receptors, AC2 receptor, that is angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor. Now this binding this virus have higher affinity towards this receptor, and that completes its binding. Once it enters into the host cell, after binding, there is uncoating of this virus, and that RNA strand comes out, and the process of replication and translation starts, and then that break up into small proteins. These all proteins, they combine with polypeptides, polyproteins are formed, and then assembly and binding occur in the Golgi apparatus, the Golgi complex, and endoplasmic reticulum, and here assembling and budding or multiplication occur. And after that, this synthesis of RNA and all that these new virus viron that comes out, releases from the cell through exocytosis. Now, as you know, as we can see here, this AC2 receptor, this binding of this with spike protein, spike glycoprotein is very important. When this virus enter into the host cell, patient get infected, and as you know that transmission of that disease occur by the droplets of the infected individuals through coughing and sneezing through droplets, and when it enters into the host cell, then the symptoms appear, and we all know symptoms are included fever, non-productive cough, myalgia, shortness of breathless. Sometimes if severe enough, it may lead to pneumonia and the severe acute respiratory syndrome. Very serious condition, it may affect the kidney and patient may die. So that all are the consequences of coronavirus. Now, when you start with the therapy, as it is considered as an pandemic. In pandemic, drugs which are already known, which having the broad spectrum, existing drugs are the most appropriate and feasible approach to treat all these pandemics. So here I'm discussing the drug targets which we can searching for and effective medications. This slide is again showing the different targets, that is how the SARS-CoV-2 starts replicating, and different targets, potential drug targets I'm discussing here. Now we can see here that this is, as I already mentioned, the spike protein, that is S protein, play a very important role for binding and attachment to the host cell. Now, when it binds with the host cell, this ACE2 receptors, they have higher affinity, and this type 2 transmembrane serine protease present on the cell, they have or they facilitate this AC2 receptor to bind with S protein. So there are two sites here, AC2 receptors and TMPRSS2, which helps in binding. So we can target these two sites to prevent the attachment or binding of this virus to the host cell. Now, when it binds with the, whenever there is this virus enters into the host cell, there are so many, it causes the release of various inflammatory kinins, like pro-inflammatory cytokines like interleukins, TNF alpha, interferons, they all are released when it enters into the cell. So another target for this is which immunomodulators, we'll discuss later all these. So, the first target is TMPRSS2, which facilitate the binding of S protein to AC2 receptors. The drugs which we are potential drugs which can be used at this target are the chemostat mesylate, which inhibit and prevent the viral cell entry. Another entry point when there is a fusion occur and uncoating of this RNA occur. At this level, when we can target the S protein, its membrane fusion can be inhibited, and arbidol, as you know, this arbidol which can be used to treat or to prevent the membrane fusion. Third entry point or third as target point is chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. They also act on at the same level where this arbidol act, that is membrane fusion and endocytosis occur. So chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, they again inhibits the viral entry and endocytosis. So both arbidol and chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, they inhibit endocytosis and multiplication mechanism. Now, third cycle, as I discussed, when uncoating occur, this RNA is released and translation into the various polypeptides and synthesis, or the small proteins are synthesized. At that level, lopinavir is the drug which can be effective, that which inhibits this 3-chymotrypsin-like protease. As you know, this drug is used in the treatment of HIV infection, and retroviral drug that is there. So that act here. So there is these are not breakdown into the small proteins. Next is that once they are small proteins are synthesized and non-structural proteins are formed, as I already mentioned, there are important 16 non-structural proteins are there which have very important role in multiplication and protein synthesis. So they start the protein synthesis in presence of RNA-dependent RNA polymerase enzyme. So they act, the drugs which are actually right now we are potential drugs, newer drugs, we can see that ribavirin and remdesivir, favipiravir, all these three drugs act at this level. They inhibit RNA-dependent RNA polymerase enzyme so that there is no synthesis of RNA, no structural proteins will be there, there will be no assembly, and there will be no exocytosis. So all these drugs, this is the various drug targets we are targeting to treat this coronavirus 2 infection. Now we'll discuss all these drugs, their mechanism and how they can be helpful, what will be the toxicity and what are their limitations, we'll discuss. So as of it now, we have 4 treatment approaches for COVID-19. One is those we act on the spike glycoprotein inhibitors, that is protease inhibitors, disulfiram, lopinavir, ritonavir, and this nifamostat, we tried that also. Those targeting the host cells, they affect the entry of this coronavirus, that chloroquine and interferons, that is there. Ribavirin, remdesivir, and favipiravir, they all are the drugs which belongs to the nucleoside analog. These are right now the newer approaches which we are trying, and must be knowing that this WHO started and global clinical trial, the solidarity trial, which are using this remdesivir, this lopinavir and ritonavir, and interferon. This 4-arm clinical trial has been started globally by WHO. So apart from all these drugs, this alternative medicine also we claim there is be helpful, and these are the drugs from this Ayurvedic and homeopathic, that is Shabdanga, Pania, Agastya, Haritaraki, and Sharbat Yuna. All these are the Ayush drugs which can be or may be helpful in the treatment of this COVID-19. So we'll discuss all these drugs one by one. This pharmacology of all these proposed COVID-19 treatment. The first and foremost is, as you know, this chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. To start with the therapy, it was claimed that hydrochloroquine is quite helpful to prevent the severity, I mean virulence of this COVID-19 infection. But as time passes, there are so many trials are conducted that says there is no difference in the outcome of when they are compared with placebo with hydroxychloroquine in these patients. So this is hydroxychloroquine may not be as much effective as it was claimed in the earlier days of this infection. But still, as per ICMR guideline, this hydroxychloroquine is still a drug of prophylaxis and treatment for all the contact and asymptomatic patients or then severe patients. As you know, this is a known anti-malarial drug, both chloroquine and phosphate and hydroxychloroquine. And as I mentioned earlier in the targets, it blocked the entry of the virus and inhibit glycosylation of the host receptors and endocytosis. Now, apart from this, as you know, this hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine also have some immunomodulatory role and inhibit the formations of various cytokines, as I already mentioned, interleukins and all other chemokines, TNF alpha, that also inhibit or have important role in as an immunomodulator. As by ICMR guidelines, this hydroxychloroquine that was given as an 400 milligram orally twice a day, for a single day, and then start with 200 milligram for twice a day for next 4 days. if you are talking about this WHO, this clinical trial, they have changed their doses. I will not discuss because it is confidential. So, as a prophylactic ICMR guideline, it is hydroxychloroquine for prophylactic purposes. It is given 800 milligram on first day and then 400 milligram for next 5 to 7 days. For prophylactic purposes, and it can be used only in moderate to severe cases, and in this for prophylactic of contact for health professional, it is given 400 milligram twice a day for 1 day, and then 400 milligram weekly for 5 to 7 weeks. Chloroquine, as you know, that is available as an 500 milligram tablet containing 300 milligram base, that is given twice a day for 5 to 10 days. So that is the dosing schedule of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. Because of so many adverse effects related with hydroxychloroquine and combination of azithromycin, as we know, that causes the prolongation of QT interval. The safety issues are also there with hydroxychloroquine. Apart from all these, chloroquine itself may cause this hypoglycemia and various neuropsychiatric disorders. They are there. It cannot be given in small children because it may cause retinal or visual field changes. But one added advantage we can say with this chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, they can be used safely during pregnancy. So that is about chloroquine phosphate and hydroxychloroquine for the treatment of COVID-19. Another drug which has been a potential treatment for this COVID-19 is combination of lopinavir and ritonavir. As you know, this is both drugs, they are used in combination in the treatment of HIV infection. Now, this drug act on the 3-chymotrypsin-like protease enzymes, protease inhibitor, and it is available in combination with 400 milligram of lopinavir and this 100 milligram of ritonavir. Lopinavir is 400 milligram and ritonavir is 100 milligram given by 12 hourly for 14 days, twice a day for 14 days. There is no dose adjustment is required, not recommended. The only contraindication is the hypersensitivity reaction with this. Now, the common adverse effect is related with gastrointestinal tract, this intolerance, vomiting, diarrhea. Sometimes severe infection or severe adverse effects may occur, and that is pancreatitis, hepatotoxic, and conduction block that may occur with this combination, lopinavir and ritonavir combination. It may be used in pregnancy, but where this benefit should be there at the harmful effect. So that is about lopinavir and ritonavir. This is the most effective combination. They are ICMR also given the guideline to be used in severe cases. Now, third drug, that is umifenovir and arabidol. Now, this umifenovir and arabidol, that is used in, it also affects, as I already mentioned, it act on the inhibit the fusion. It's a fusion inhibitor and inhibit the binding of this spike protein with AC2 membrane receptors, that is angiotensin converting enzyme to receptor, which is preferably with present on the lung epithelial cells. It is also present on this non-respiratory epithelial cells. That includes heart, kidney, endothelium, and intestine. So these receptors, they are highly expressed in lung epithelium. That's why there is a involvement of this lung tissue is more with COVID-19 infection. The dose which is proposed is 200 milligram every 8 hourly orally, and to be given for 7 to 14 days depending on the patient's conditions. Again, dose adjustment is required in hepatic impairment. You have to decrease the dose in presence of hepatic failure. As far as contraindications are concerned, there is again hypersensitivity or allergic reactions, which is caused by these drugs, is a contraindication of these drugs. Toxicity, common toxicity, that it is metabolized by, most common is metabolized by cytochrome P3A4. So we have to monitor this efficacy and or adverse effect if we are using any other drug which is metabolized through these drugs, or any inducers which will increase its metabolism of this drug and may cause the severe toxicity. So that is the main toxicity caused by this. This particular drug, it is contraindicated in children and below the 2 years of age, because they shows a high sensitivity reaction, hypersensitivity reaction with this drug. Another drug, this is newer drugs which we are trying now, potential, this remdesivir, favipiravir, and ribavirin. Remdesivir, it is not available, and right now it is only available in China. It was act on through RNA polymerase inhibitor, so it inhibit the assembly and this protein synthesis. The usual dose which is prescribed of this remdesivir is 200 milligram for first day, and then 100 milligram every day as an IV infusion. No, right now there is no dose adjustment is required with this drug if patient is having any kidney or hepatic disease. So no dose adjustment is required. As this is a new drug, right now it's only FDA is not approved, but it is this drug is exclusion criteria is as per these dependent on the as per the protocol of the clinical trial. The main toxicity with this drug is it in elevated transaminase enzyme and may lead to kidney toxicity. This particular drug is, as I mentioned, it is WHO has started clinical trial, solidity trial with 4 arms. So one arm is for one arm it is remdesivir, which is given to the patient. Another arm is chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine. Third one is combination of lopinavir and ritonavir, and fourth is this combination with interferon. So remdesivir is under the clinical trial with which WHO started. Another drug again is favipiravir. It is again same RNA polymerase inhibitor, and this is again dose very depending on the indications. It was used as a loading dose in very high dose, 2.4 to 3 grams every 12 hourly as 2 doses at 12 hours apart, and then maintenance dose is given is 1.2 gram to 1.8 gram again every 12 hours. No dose adjustment is required, but this hepatic, if patient is having hepatic derangements or hepatic disease, then dose adjustment is considered. Now it is the tablet, it is available as a tablet, and tablet can be crushed or mixed with liquid and then be taken. It have very high bioavailability, more than 95% it is having bioavailability. The exclusion criteria is again same because it's a newer drug, so exclusion criteria are same as that of as per clinical trial. The toxicity, main toxicity is as it is hepatic toxicity already mentioned, it's hepatotoxic, so it may lead to elevation of transaminase enzymes, hyperuricemia. So you have to be very careful while prescribing this drug. Another drug is ribavirin, that is also there. It is nucleoside analog, and it is approved drug for hepatitis C. It is already available in the market and it is used for hepatitis C. Again, it inhibits RNA polymerase RNA-dependent RNA polymerase enzyme. The dose is 1.2 to 2.4 gram orally for 8 hourly. It is contraindicated, and because it is having teratogenic effect. This ribavirin is dose-dependent toxicity is there, and hemolytic anemia and hematological toxicity is very common with ribavirin. These are the drugs to be proposed for the potential drug targets and treatment for the treatment of COVID-19. Now, as I already mentioned, there is another immunomodulators. They are also there, and recently that covalescent plasma or hyperimmunoglobulins are also tried, and ICMR is given the this permission to conduct or for this covalescent plasma therapy for the patients, those who are moderate to severe infection. Now, as you know, this when patient get infected with virus, antibodies are formed, and these antibodies are used for these withdrawn from this patient who are already get infected and cured, and then that antibodies are transfused to the patients with moderate to severe infection. This covalescent plasma, they were tried in the during Ebola infections, and they say have good results when given in early phase of the infection. Right now, we are still these therapies under clinical trial, and results are to be awaited. There's some adjuvant therapies are also tried. Apart from these, as I already mentioned, there are severe pro-inflammatory response is evoked, and various interleukins and TNF alpha immunoglobulin that is also released during infection. Various cytokine storm is there. So various immunomodulators are also tried, and one monoclonal antibody, that is tocilizumab, that is we tried, which is specific IL-6 inhibitor, and that can be used. Other agents which act as immunomodulators, you know, that imitinib, cyclosporine, dasatinib, sarilumab, these all are the immunomodulators. They just improve the immunity and inhibit all these pro-inflammatory and immunity cells in inflammatory response. The dose I just mentioned is tocilizumab, that is the dose is 400 milligram or 8 milligram or 8 milligram per kilogram. Only one dose is given if patient is not responding. Then second dose is given, and the second dose should be given after the 12 hours if there is no response is there. Dose assessment, we have not studied this, how patient will respond, but then we have to weigh the benefit on the risk. So we are not studied in patients with severe impairment, but we should weigh whether it's beneficial or not. Risk-benefit ratio should be taken into consideration. Hypersensitivity reaction with this is only contraindications, and patients with neutropenia or thrombocytopenia, this drug should not be given. So when we see this common toxicity with tocilizumab, that is may leads to increase upper respiratory tract infection. Tuberculosis is again a very common infection. They can cause nasopharyngitis, headache, hypertension. The major adverse effect with this drug is hematological adverse effects, hepatotoxicity that is there. But safety during pregnancy is unknown, so we have to be very careful. It may cause fetal harm, so we have to be very careful while prescribing this drug in the pregnant ladies. Other adjuvant therapy is tried is corticosteroids. Now, As you know, role of corticosteroid is again under questions, and this says that whenever there is severe respiratory distress is there, we should start with higher doses of steroids, methylprednisolone, and that should be tapered. But again, when we use these steroids in viral infection, they may increase the risk of secondary infections. Though, so again, this role of corticosteroid is again a questionable. So we have to be. ICMR guidelines says we should use steroids when required, but as far as our experience right now it is concerned, we are not using corticosteroid in many patients in India. Then another drugs which have been tried these infection, oseltamivir, we know that is the drug of choice in cases of H1N1 infection, commonly known as swine flu. That is neuraminidase inhibitor. That is tried also, but this drug was tried in the early phases of when these patients in China, when they consider that as it is a normal common flu or influenza. So they give this oseltamivir to all those patients, but there was no response or no recovery when they give this oseltamivir, and that then they came to know that this particular viral infection or influenza is not a normal but have some newer viral infection. So only in China they started their therapy with oseltamivir, but without any response. So now no one is trying these oseltamivir for this infection. Then comes interferon B, as we know that interferon is again when immunomodulator, the antibodies are formed and they prevent any infection. That is again, as I already mentioned, that is the one arm for this clinical trial started by WHO. Nitazoxanide, it is again anthelmintic drug and used for this step forms, giardiasis and where in 2015 when Ebola infection occurred, they tried it and they says it also have antiviral effect and effective against so many viral infections. So it is nitazoxanide was also tried, but no results or control trials were not there. So we cannot say that nitazoxanide is helpful in COVID-19 infection. Comastate mesylate already mentioned, which is used this to prevent this entry of this through S pipe, and that is also not very helpful. That chemostat mesylate, that is not very helpful. So that is all about the various drugs which are tried for the treatment of COVID-19. But as we know, so to conclude this treatment part, this COVID-19 pandemic represents the greatest global crisis of this generation, and no therapy have been shown effective till date. And we have to require this high quality evidence data are yet to generate. So what to do? What is the right now? It's a strategy to control this infection. So these are the various measures during COVID-19 pandemic, as we don't have any specific or treatment for that. So that is all the guidelines. Prevention. We know that prevention is better than cure. So avoid close contacts with infected individuals and stay at home. Use of mask. Avoid contagious people, and because as I already mentioned, it is transmitted through droplets the infected person while sneezing and coughing. Frequent hand washing, use of sanitizers, disinfect frequently. So all these measures that can prevent us with these infections. And as the scenario right now in the most part of the country, we have only mild to moderate symptoms, and some asymptomatic patients are also there. So right now there is not much treatment is required for this COVID-19, and even prophylactic treatment and just avoidance or this prophylactic measure can control this infection. So the mainstay of this to prevent this to be infected with COVID-19 is avoid close contact. So keep safe distance of 6 feet as this guideline by ICMR. So frequent hand washing, safe social distancing, use of mask, sanitization, frequent sanitization, hand wash. That is what is required. So that was about the drugs. Now, some vaccines are also tried for this infection. As I mentioned, that as glycoprotein is the main entry point. We have important role for attachment and binding with. So that is the main target for vaccines. And as there were, as I mentioned, non-structural proteins are also there. 16 non-structural proteins are there in this COVID-19. So that we are trying vaccines against those also. So live attenuated and whole viral vaccines or antibodies vaccines, they are tried. So they are main targeting that this attachment at S spike, or rather spike and glycoprotein is the main target for that. So what is, there are certain do's and don'ts, and maybe you are all are aware of all these, but just to revise, do's are positive thinking, regular exercise, balanced diet, relaxation, socialization, taking a break from routine work, lifestyle measures. So that all will lead to positive mental health during COVID-19. Don'ts are don't substance use, eating too much, excessive watching television, posting about or believing fake news. So that is what we are not required to keep us elated and with having positive mental health during this pandemic. If to avoid all these, we can strengthen ourselves. The psychological, pharmacological, and all these treatment is required. So just measures during pandemic. This revision, that's relaxation exercise, yoga, aerobic exercise, creative activity, positive thinking. So that is all is required to face this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your views on. Now the session is open for everyone. Anyone can ask the questions to Dr. Sneha Ambwani by self-mute. From our side, all the audience are unmuted. One question arises from Dr. Lakshman Rao. How to boost immunity in COVID situation?
Immunity has so many home remedies are available. That says that is what CAM, that the alternative medicine says. Use all these medicines which I mentioned earlier. There are so many medicines available in Ayush, Ayurvedic, and as they says, turmeric with haldi and ginger, they also improve the immunity. And vitamin C, they says that is also improve the immunity, so that can be done. Positive thinking always improve the immunity. That is what I think. Be positive. So that is all we need to understand, that we have to learn to live with this COVID-19, because as we are aware that it will go on, it's not stopped yet. So that we have to learn to live with, and we ourselves have to be protective, and by keep safe distancing, social distancing, we can avoid.
Okay, ma'am. Next question arises from Jyoti Prakash. What are the effectives of broad spectrum antiviral drugs against COVID-19?
What are the?
What broad spectrum antiviral drugs are effective against COVID-19?
So that is what we are trying. All these drugs which we are trying are all are broad spectrum. That's Ribenavir. Ribenavir, as I already mentioned, that is already used for this hepatitis C. It's a approved drug, and what we usually do during pandemic is that is known as drug this repurposing, that we are using already available drugs, existing drugs, which are having broad spectrum action. Rubinavir and these lopinavir, they all are having broad spectrum effect. So that is why we are trying, because this is a new virus. Don't know how it will react with all these drugs. So that's why we are trying all those broad spectrum drugs that might be effective. That's why because there are so many available drugs, antiviral drugs, but they have specific action. For example, oseltamivir, that have effect only on this H1N1. Even it is less effective in H1N5. That's not very specific. That is very specific drug for H1N1. So that doesn't show any effect on this. So all these drugs, whether it is HIV drugs, remdesivir, they claim they have broad spectrum, so they might be effective. And this is a new virus actually. So earlier we were trying all those because it belongs to that severe acute respiratory syndrome virus, that is SARS virus, which was earlier occurred in 2009, and that's why we are trying all those drugs which were effective in SARS. Most of the drugs, they were effective in SARS, and also that this Middle East respiratory syndrome was, that is also there. All these drugs were effective in those conditions also. But situation are till now, all these drugs are showing less effect or less effective in COVID-19. So that's why in severe cases, serious conditions, when severe respiratory syndrome occur, ARDS, what we are calling ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, all these drugs are become ineffective or less effective. If they are effective, there should not be any ARDS once they are started. But in spite that occur, and that most of in cases, they not in India, but you can see in other countries, that is the cause of death. Here in India, situation is might little bit change, because whatever the deaths occur, most of the patients, they were having comorbidities also, diabetes and other comorbidities. Healthy individuals were not much affected. Of course, deaths are there in those patients, individuals also, but number is less as compared to deaths in other countries. So that might, and as we say, we have already immune by so many viruses in India. That's why virulence is less as compared to other countries.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. One question is from Dr. Deshmukh Joshi. According to literature, coronavirus ineffective in basic medium. So, which type of immunoboosters used which having basic in medium?
Basic in I couldn't get it.
Sir, you can ask your question directly by self-mute. You are unmuted by the organizers.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Madam, I want to know about that. According to the literature, the coronavirus is ineffective in the basic medium, whereas the pH is acid. So, which type of food, which type of the minerals, which type of the herbal drugs used for the boosting of immunity, which having the basic and medium, alkaline and medium?
Literature says it is effective in basic medium. You want to say that?
No.
That is
The
the question.
virus will be ineffective into the basic medium
Okay.
according according to the literature. So I am asking about the which type of the herbal drugs can we use, which is basic and medium, except than the lemon.
As far as herbal drugs are concerned, I have least knowledge about that. That Ayush people can tell you better regarding this herbal drugs. But when we say that, because vitamin C and all these, they are, they says they improve the immunity and helpful in to prevent the this infection. So
Okay.
that is how we improve the immunity by vitamin C. And as we say that this normal measures that like drinking hot water, gargling, that may decrease the viral load. That infection is not that will not kill the virus, but that will frequent drinking of hot water, that will leads to dilution of that viral load, so that we have immunity to control that load. If virus load is more, people can get infected. But if there is less viral load, that infection can be unnoticed. So unnoticed infection can occur, can be there, so without having any symptoms. And we know that there are so many asymptomatic patients are there, in which no symptoms are there, and still they are coming positive with when we are doing this RT-PCR testing, right? So that is how different aspects we have to understand what is there.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other question?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, one question arises from the Seltha Manj. Most of the drugs are RNA polymerase inhibitors, but which one or more effective when we compare antiviral drugs?
All these are under trial. About 3 drugs which I mentioned, that remdesivir and favipiravir, and that all these are under trial. As far as, because as I mentioned, there are different targets which we can target to kill this virus. So most effective, most important one is that entry point. And that I already mentioned that as glycoprotein is the important glycoprotein for virus. So if we'll kill that entry point, if we'll kill the virus at the entry point, there will be no multiplication occur. So that is the main, that as I mentioned, that we are trying to get the vaccine by acting at that level also. That is the main target, to develop the vaccines. All these drugs, when using this RNA polymerase, RNA dependent polymerase, that are not host specific. Actually, when we are using these antiviral drugs, they are not specific ones, so they also affect the host cells. So in that way, they have their own adverse effects related. That's why we have to be very careful while using these drugs. As with HIV drugs, we see that this CD4 cell count, that is also host cell CD4 counts are also affected, but they are toxic in that way. So we have to be very careful.
Okay, ma'am. Next question arises from Dr. Rakesh Kumar. What are the safety aspects of multivitamin capsules for increasing immunity? People are taking these medicines more in these days. It is safe or unsafe?
In my opinion, if you have good healthy diet, there is no need of all these vitamins or minerals. These are required only when you doesn't have in your food. If you are using junk foods or with preservatives and any disease, malnutrition like that, then you are having like deficiency of all these vitamins. As you know, Allah, you know that very minute quantity of these vitamins is required to maintain our normal physiological functions, right? So if you have good healthy diet, then there is no deficiency at all, and you yourself have good immunity. That's why the main this preventive measure is to have a good healthy diet. But you know, it's a routine practice. After a certain age, people start taking all these vitamins to boost their immunity or to prevent any deficiency, though that is not required. So that is the usual practice. But as this says when you should have good immunity to avoid, and that is for all viral infection, not for COVID. For all viral infections, you have to have good immunity. So as this is a routine practice, and now it has become now it's a panic now. So more and more people started taking this. And in my opinion, most of them, they doesn't require it. And because we are using it a very minute concentration, very micro doses, chances of developing adverse effects or side effects are very minimum. But with some of them, gastritis and other GIT problems might occur with hypervitaminosis. That might be there, especially if they have any trace elements like zinc and all that. They have their own toxicity if you take in higher doses. So that might occur. If they have multivitamin with all these magnesium, zinc and all that, that might cause toxicity. Otherwise, these minor concentration hardly have any.
Okay, ma'am. Now, next question from Suraj. Presently, which treatment is given to patients which are detected by COVID-19?
As ICMR guideline, as I already mentioned, they says we should start with this chloroquine for moderate and severe patients with moderate and severe infection. In mild, they just give symptomatic treatment, that is paracetamol, or they have cough, the cough syrup. That is the ICMR guideline. You can go through that ICMR guideline on their sites. They have specifically mentioned there is no specific treatment for mild to moderate. A patient is having no symptoms, no complaints, right? So fever, this paracetamol is sufficient. Antitussive might be, anti-allergic might be, that's it. Until unless patient is having secondary infections, which showing with pneumonia or other lower respiratory tract infection, lung infection, should start with azithromycin. That is there. So, and in moderate to severe, that you can start with hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine phosphate. That is the right now the guideline for ICMR. But as we are this going through all this information and print media, they says that most of the people are having mild to moderate infection. So usually, and accordingly, each institute have developed their own guidelines depending on this ICMR. So they have their own. You must be gone through or have this. Each institute have updated or uploaded their own guidelines when and how to deal with these patients. So right now, symptomatic, because this is in any case it is a viral infection, right? But if it is serious enough that its main affecting its main effect on AC2 receptors, right? AC2 receptors is highly expressed in lung tissues. That's why there is high chances of lung infection is there, or I must say that respiratory distress is there, right? Lung parenchyma was affected, and that leads to respiratory distress. That's it, severe respiratory distress syndrome, acute respiratory distress syndrome, right? So until unless patient is having symptoms related with that severe infection, I don't think there is need of any drug. It's simply symptomatic treatment, vitamins, or just to boost immunity, as with other measures, home remedies. Patients are responding actually. So that is all is what is required.
Okay, ma'am. And ma'am, next question is from Ratan Lal. Is coronavirus is more severe than flu?
And flu, obviously, it is different now, because normal flu is having just rhinitis, does rarely affect the lung tissue, right? This is COVID. This is a new, because if you go through history, in earlier also that SARS infection was also there, severe acute respiratory syndrome virus. That was also coronavirus, but that was different, which is we identified as is a novel coronavirus, that we say the SARS-CoV-2, Corona 2. That was a different one. Earlier also it was in Spanish flu. It was there earlier, and that was causing severe respiratory distress. So normally it doesn't. Normally virus is many times unnoticed, right? We simply have sneezing and cough or rhinitis, running nose, and that is influenza. Normal influenza is. no treatment is required. Then comes swine flu, that is H1N1, and that requires treatment. If you not treat, it will may affect your again lung tissues, right? It is another severe form of this COVID-19. If you will not treat it, it may affect your lung tissue, lung parenchyma, because these binding site of this coronavirus is ACE2 receptors, which are highly expressed in lung tissues. So that's why we have to be very careful.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, as you told about many drugs are combination possible against the treatment of COVID-19. Then why we making of vaccines taking time? Why we can't use these drugs combination by made as a vaccine?
We are trying with different targets because there, as I mentioned, that spike protein, glycoprotein, that is there, and every vaccine that requires some time. First, we have to identify the targets, then its virulence, then make it irvirulent. Otherwise, if you are using live vaccines, that might harm the patients, harm the recipient. So we have to decrease the virulence of that. And until unless we have a good trials on the human beings, we cannot say this vaccine is effective. So they are trying. They have tried. Must have seen that tried human vaccine once, but it will take time definitely, because there are so many proteins, amino acid chain is there, so slightest change might make the whole exercise futile, right? So we have to be very careful while preparing any vaccine, because it's have lots and lots of efforts. We have identified, people means abroad, they have identified which targets we are going looking for, and hopefully we will get soon some vaccines. Until unless there is no mutation, as you know, that with swine flu, H1N1 infection, mutation occur very rapidly. So by every alternate year, we have to develop another vaccine. The same vaccine is not effective, right? So we have to be very careful and regarding about this development of vaccine for this also.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anyone more available for question answers? So they can ask directly questions. The link for webinar assessment is showing on your screen, that is www.opf.org.in/drugs. Anyone can ask questions by self-mute. You are unmuted by organizers. Thank you, ma'am, for joining with us today's webinar on drugs, on COVID-19, sharing your perspectives about these drugs. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we are going to close session.
Thank you very much, Vikram. Hopefully we will get the information better.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining with us today's webinar on drugs for COVID-19, sharing perspectives.